our collaboration products, including Google Docs. And he's going to walk you through some of the features and functionality of Docs. He's also going to talk about Google Apps Script and just help you work better with your clients to expand their usage of apps, including making sure they use all of the features within Docs. So a few housekeeping items before we get started. The presentation is going to be posted along with the recording of this webinar on the webinar archive section of the Solution Providers portal. We will be taking Q&A throughout the presentation. Please be sure that you put it in the Q&A box in the bottom right corner of the screen, not the chat box in the middle. And that's going to help us keep track of all your questions and make sure Jonathan can address them as he goes. So with that, Jonathan, I'm going to share your screen with everyone so we can get started.
Sounds good.
So you have presenter status now. I think you have to share your screen on your end.
Okay. Let me know when you can see it.
We can see it.
Great. Okay, hi everybody. I'm going to try to step through the slides fairly quickly, and please stop with questions or ask them through the channel that Michelle pointed you to, and I'll take the questions as we go. I think that will be easier. But generally, I'm going to cover Docs. We're trying to just give you an overview of how you can engage your clients a little bit deeper with apps in general, but certainly with Docs. So just since that's my first slide transition, am I on the agenda now?
Yep, you are.
Great, thank you. I won't ask anymore. So we're just going to go through what Google Docs is, an overview and general competitive positioning, assuming that you get those questions from your customers. Some cool features in Google Docs, and then a quick overview of Apps Script to go a little bit deeper into one of the potentially lesser known but certainly more powerful features. So we basically say it's a world without attachments. It generally is just the counter to collaborating through attachments when you're using Google Docs. So you're not taking a document, creating it on your desktop or on a local connected drive, and then sending it to people as an attachment or something that creates additional copies. You've got one document with multiple editors, as well as multiple viewers. So you maintain control of the single copy. You're also securely controlling access to your information. It's up to you who you share with. So you can share with a person, multiple people directly by email address, or with groups, or even more openly to a whole domain or to the world. And that's definitely pertinent to your customers. That's one of the things that they're asking. Sorry, I just hit my keyboard by mistake. The third point, just generally, is that it works across platforms. So it's a browser-based app. You don't necessarily have to install software at all, as long as you have a browser and you have connectivity. So with Google Docs, you can create documents. It's basic documents editor. You can create spreadsheets, which is something you're familiar with, probably. It's, again, a powerful tool, and generally, not true. It's almost, I have many examples where people thought that we immediately uploaded something and it was working as is. And you can create presentations. And the presentations, again, the presentations editor, the spreadsheets editor, the document editor are very familiar interfaces. It's something that people will understand as soon as they get into them. The key benefits, we've organized some of them here. I listed some of them. It's not necessarily the end, but these are the ones that we hear often and directly from customers, what they're finding to be the most useful benefits of the suite of tools. Definitely real-time simultaneous editing, although a lot of people say we don't need that. Once they use it, they understand one of the most important features of the product in general, which is you're all working on the same document. And so when they say they don't need simultaneous editing, they might be right, but what simultaneous editing gives you is the complete understanding that you're working on the same document. That has definitely been shown to improve team productivity, and there are studies that have been done and being done by our customers that actually show that very clearly. So besides the fact that we experienced that at Google, we've heard it directly from the customers. Finding and organizing your content in one place is actually another benefit we hear often. To be able to see everything and to see the most up-to-date versions in one list is very crucial. Revision history lets you go back to prior versions. It's, again, simple to access from any of the editors. Having a single current version also means that you're not proliferating copies by emailing and having everybody download it to view it. Controlled collaboration, I think I mentioned before, to specific people, groups, or whole domains. You can also now share folders that way, so you can share groups of documents, spreadsheets, presentations, PDFs by sharing a folder. The next time you drag or put a file from your list into that folder, it will be shared with the people that folder is shared with. Online storage also just implies that you are now not dependent on your machine. I recently had a laptop crash, and it was a very liberating experience to not care. Really all of the tools and apps, obviously, work across PC, Mac, and Linux. At Google, that's critical because we have many engineers on Linux only, and they're actually using this tool on a daily basis. Third-party products are actually welcome in our suite as well. We have something called the Enterprise Marketplace. Enterprise is probably a misnomer, and I think internally we feel that way as well. But it is a marketplace for third-party products for anyone using the app suite. So it is something that when we don't provide, which is very often, we don't provide the special type of process or business support that you need. CRM is probably the most common example of that, some kind of customer relationship management product. It's likely you'll be able to find it on the marketplace. The other things you find on the marketplace are things like migration tools, or reporting tools, or visualizations, or there's many things there. So I would say look at that and understand it. In talking to your customers, it definitely helps to know what's there when the customer has a need. You might also find that things that you create will eventually belong there. It becomes a fine line, I think, between offering service and offering product. And at some point, what we believe also is one of the opportunities for resellers is to step over that line and say, well, we did something very interesting for a customer that we think can be applied to other customers. Let's put it on the marketplace. If not, just putting even your services on the marketplace. You'll see that, well, many of you are probably there, hopefully. So that's actually something to look at if you're not. Just quick. Sorry, go ahead.
Jonathan, before we move on, I have a quick question regarding spreadsheets. If you have an Excel file with macros, is that going to upload correctly?
The file will, but the macros, unfortunately, will be left behind. So if the macros, and we'll get into a little bit of that, certainly we find that there are absolutely, times that those macros are doing something substantial, right? Those are the power users that are doing something that's real processing, real automation. But you'll also find, and this is an area where I think integrators and resellers can offer help, you'll find that the macros are actually not doing much more than navigation and helping users of a complex spreadsheet navigate between sheets. I've seen that very often. And it's important, I think, to understand that. But to answer the question, no, we do not convert or take the macros in. However, if you find that the macros are doing something fairly straightforward, it's likely that you can, in a very straightforward way, replicate that capability in some other way, whether it's on sites, in the spreadsheet itself, using Google Apps Script, or some other way.
Okay, and we do have a question about the maximum number of files you can upload on one go. I think that actually might have been on the previous slide.
Yeah, and I'm going to go to it quickly to see if I see it, because I don't remember what the limits are there. I'm going to have to go to the Help Center for that, frankly. I don't remember in one go whether there's actually a cap we put on the number. It's multiple, and there's sort of an add button, and you keep adding, and I actually don't remember if there's a limit to that. Sorry. We can follow up with you. So I'll just quickly mention a few competitive positioning points. Again, things that you might be asked or might help you understand where Docs fits, because I think at times this is misunderstood. But when I say it really is a productivity suite, it's not just creation of content. It is aimed at making teams more productive. So it's not just about replicating what people have on their desktop tools. It's about giving people the ability to create content and do with it what they probably intended, which is share it with others. And that means during the content creation process via collaboration, or after it's created via just simple sharing for view. And that, we're finding, it really is a productivity gain. So calling it a productivity suite really is fair. It definitely should meet the content creation needs of most users. Again, what we're finding, and we find at Google, is that close to 80% of people are not necessarily looking for desktop licenses now of local content creation tools. There are power users that need it, and there are, that's undeniable and not bad. It's just something that people typically ask you and us. That question is, can we get rid of desktop licenses? And the answer in a lot of cases is potentially. Yes or no, depending on the needs of the individual. But we find a great number don't need their licenses. Removing security concerns of emailed and copied versions on every desktop. Again, this is just more about the realization that emailing an attachment actually is not a good way to assume security. It's something that proliferates potentially private data on every desktop that views it, not to mention every email system that it might go to if it's not within the corporate network of your client. And that is, again, one copy on the web. While people will raise security concerns about having it on the web, there is a very strong counter to that at least there is one copy. And yes, while you have to make sure that it's secure up on the web, it's in one place. And again, the most important thing is we are organizing your world of information. That is, what you can tell your clients, making it more accessible and useful. It's still their information, but now they can access it from anywhere and change the way they work. So let's go into some features. Again, this should be a little more fun. If you've got questions about the features, great. If I go too fast, slow me down. And certainly same vice versa. If you've seen all this stuff, great. Creating forms is something that we've gotten fantastic feedback on. The ability to very quickly create a form and get the data into the format that people typically are expecting it eventually, which is in a spreadsheet. So you easily create a form. The responses from that form are automatically added to the spreadsheet. There is no sign-on required when you do it through a form because it's non-destructive. You're basically just adding content. It's a very simplistic and heavily used feature within domains and outside or extra domain, which is a company trying to collect data from their customers or from their partners. It's a very commonly used feature. Within that feature, we've added some recent things that are very useful, again, directly from feedback from customers. This grid feature, the ability to ask multiple things at once, according to, sort of like the old number 2 pencil forms. The ability to add page breaks, so you could specifically say, for this multiple choice, if they answer choice number 3, go to a different page of the survey or the form. That's something that really helps in processing and making the form data specific. We've got themes, so you can actually make the form look good. There's a summary chart that's generated automatically. It's very simple. Once the responses start coming in, you can see the summary chart. I set up a quick form for people to see. If you look at this address, if anybody's on on a machine that they can get to another window and look at, it's just bit.ly/app-survey. And I'm just going to quickly, when you get to that form, there's just 2 questions on it, but I want to show you the most important feature of that. I'm sorry, I'm going to jump around here to try to find it. I'm not exactly organized enough here. I clearly opened too many windows before. So I'm just going to log in here as a user of a domain and look at the spreadsheet to which that form was pointing. And if people are entering data into that form, you can see that the data is showing up here. Now you should be able to see, again, unless a lot of people actually entered it very quickly, but you can see the results are coming in right now. And as results are coming in, we're seeing them in real time come in. This is, I have to say, this is actually one of the most fun things to do, because you send a form out to your customers and you immediately start getting results. This is as long as they're online and they're seeing it, and you can see how things are coming in now. This is just something that I think people don't necessarily expect. They don't understand it until they see it. Now, if I go to the form menu, you can see 24 results have come in, and I look at summary of responses. It's also going to generate for me the charts that show what the responses are thus far. I'll move it over a bit so we can see. Oops. What happened there? Whoops, sorry about that. And that's how the responses are laid out so far. So I tried to use two somewhat relevant questions. You can see that 13 or 59% of you consider yourself system integrators, if you're answering this directly. And then for each of those grid question types, we can kind of measure how much people are specifically dealing with each of the products. So Google Docs, it looks like actually it's more often than I would have expected, but Google Sites rarely. And again, this is real-time data, so it's kind of a very fast way. If you can imagine how you would have collected this data otherwise, or how we would have collected it, it's actually would have been potentially onerous. So I'll keep going. Any stopping points there, Michelle? Should I wait?
Jonathan, we have a question about how to deal with auditing.
How to deal with auditing?
Yes.
So that question might mean a few things, but I'll just mention a couple. One of the most important things probably for us was to have SAS 70 certification for apps in general, and I think that's probably pertinent to this question and for your customers, which is basically a certification as a service provider to say that the service is auditable. You can audit the service, and if the customer is audited, our services can basically be part of that audit. We have very specific things that we're asked and that we can answer and we need to answer. So if, again, I'm assuming SAS 70 would mean something to all of you with your larger customers for sure. And for the smaller customers, with a little bit of education on their part, if they don't know what it is, it's probably pertinent to that as well. I'm not sure if that covers the question or if we can ask the person that asked it to clarify.
Yeah, no, that was great. Thank you. There's also a question, I'm not sure if you're able to discuss this or not, but about plans for adding mobile editing to this. So editing a document from, say, your iPhone.
Yeah, that's a great question. I can't really answer directly to say yes, here's the date that we'll have it. But we have instances of really strong mobile interfaces. So the list of documents is very strong. The ability to view and the ability to edit a spreadsheet is actually pretty strong. It will see that you're on a smartphone and give you a row-by-row editing experience that's actually pretty strong. We've gotten great feedback on it. So I think eventually, yes. We just don't have a planned end date.
And then back to the SAS 70 certification. Oh, my screen just jumped. Do you have control objectives for the SAS 70 audit?
I don't know that answer, actually. So I would guess the answer is yes. I just don't know it. That's not my area of expertise. I apologize.
Okay, no problem. I think we can move on now.
Okay, great. Another feature that's in the product that people kind of overlook potentially is drawings. So you can actually do drawings within a spreadsheet, a document, or a presentation. Those drawings are becoming more and more rich. They're not necessarily going to cover every need you have, but they are definitely something that I've completely moved over to now. I'm able to use it for all of my needs. Which, again, I'm not doing network diagrams necessarily, but I probably could. The template gallery is something that it definitely should be specifically mentioned and, quote, sold to your customers. It's very powerful when you have a domain. First, to have a starting point from public templates, but also to have a private gallery. So first, this is just a very quick screenshot of what the public gallery looks like. When you're in a private gallery, you have the ability to create reusable and branded assets, or your client does for themselves. These can be things that are syndicated across, again, only within your domain, but across your domain. And what we're finding is that once customers discover it, it's like this hidden gem that they realize that's where we can put our, whether it's HR documents or, again, our invoices or whatever, even things that you're going to be using with direct communication with customers, which is why the branding comes into play there. And again, I do think it's something that you can provide service to your customer in helping them create some of these templates as well. These templates, again, once you've created something of value for that customer, now it can be spread across that customer's domain. Folder sharing I mentioned before, but just to give you a close-up, an extreme close-up screenshot of finding this thing. When you're in the doc list and under a folder, there's a share this folder link there, and that's how you actually can share the folder, and you can easily drag and drop things into it and make all those things shared. That's a really strong way to, and again, we're not going into sites here, but it's almost like a simple version of a site is a folder where you've created a shared space, you move things into it, and everybody that's been shared that folder gets access to all of those things. Translation is actually really neat. There's a few ways to do it. There's a translate function now in spreadsheets, or translate functions, and there's a translate capability within docs. So you can translate any there's actually two things in docs. One is what we're showing in this thing, is in this screenshot, is the definition and translation of a word or a group of words. The other capability is translation of a whole document. And the translation of a whole document, translation of a whole document lets you then save that document. Any document in your doc list can be translated to one of, I think it's 40 or 48 languages, and then resaved to your doc list and reshared in that language if you choose. It saves it as a copy so you don't lose the original. There's also connections to Gmail through Labs. In Gmail, there's a feature called Gmail Labs, which you probably know, and there are a few labs that actually let you connect fairly strongly to docs. So there's a preview lab, which lets you, when you send a document that has anything in it that's a link to something in Google Docs, it gives you a preview capability. So you can open the window within Mail, which is really useful. There's a Docs Gadget, which lets you see the most recent documents that you've used, plus search directly. There are people today that when I ask them if they use Docs, they don't actually even think they're using Docs. And when I talk about the Doc list, I'd say, the list where you see your folders and all. They have no idea what I'm talking about, but I know they use Docs. It turns out they're just using this. They're only using this gadget because they don't necessarily have any need to see things beyond the prior 5, or they know they can search and they can get to it. So they don't actually use our normal interface. So this gadget is actually tremendously useful. Other capabilities integrated into Docs that we're not going to go into in deep detail, but I'll just mention. You can search the web using selected content, which means in a document or a spreadsheet, if you select certain content, there's an option, usually on a right click, to say search the web using that. There's a gadget for image and web searching in spreadsheets that lets you actually see something a little bit more visual and see search results as you are traversing the spreadsheet. You can import live data into a spreadsheet, and that means that there are several functions that allow you to import HTML, XML, CSV data, or feed data, so RSS or Atom, which is very useful for a variety of things. It's definitely an area that you might find is useful, again, for integration projects. So if somebody's looking to take data from another service that's available via some HTTP call, that's one of the ways you can do it. We do a lot of that internally at Google as well. Autofill, which includes something we call Magic Fill, and I'm going to quickly show you that because it's fun in a minute. As well as looking up data on the web. So there's a function called Google Lookup, and there's also a function called Google Finance. Those actually use direct web lookups, which is, again, a little bit different than you might expect from a normal spreadsheet. And I'll show you something very quick here. This is just a simple spreadsheet. Is that coming across clear, Michelle?
Yeah, I can see that fine.
Okay. this spreadsheet is just literally, I've got a few countries listed and a few attributes. And so the first thing I'll show you is Magic Fill. If I highlight these countries, the three that I put in there, United States, United Kingdom, and France, and I hold down the Option key when I stretch it, it should infer for me what I'm probably trying to get, which is a list of countries. And as is the case as normal, it's not working for me here. For whatever reason, my connection or my spreadsheet has somehow gone. Sorry, I'll just reload this and try it one more time. Rewind. And so it's actually inferring that I probably want countries, and it's using something that we have had in labs for a long time called Google Sets, which is a very interesting and fun tool to play with. What I used here, and you can try things. What's fun is to try things that might be specific to your customer, you know, whether it's products or certain things that are within their domain. This is now a Google lookup function. This is a function that actually is looking up the object to the left, which is United States in this case, and the attribute above. And it's actually finding me through the web an answer. And I see that I am actually having a connectivity problem here because I'm still loading, but I'll see if this works. I'll actually stretch this across, and that function should actually give me this similar result, again, for the specific attribute that's above. And these are new things that I've tried, type of government, area, continent, coastline. Again, these are things that I have found are possible to get on the web. It's not impossible you'll get the wrong answer, but if you do, it'll at least tell you what the source is. So that's something that is now in a taking capability from something called Google Squared. So this is just showing how we're kind of taking capabilities across other Google products and stretching them. And if I stretch this down, I should be able to get results. And again, I'm sorry, my copy-paste here is working extremely slowly for my connection. But that will, or should, give me results across all of the countries that I've expanded to. I think I'm going to have to, oh, there it goes. Yeah, I have a feeling WebEx is potentially eating my bandwidth here. So, but I think you get the idea. The concept is there. It's something that is powerful, particularly when you're doing multiple research points. So to look these things up individually is onerous, and this is something that, again, it's partially fun and partially useful, but certainly shows the integration that we've got with web products, and I think that's the key point. So there the data is starting to fill in. And the finance function I won't show you, but it works in a similar way when it, similar way to as when it's working, where it looks up stock data as if you're on the Google Finance page, and it's extremely useful again if you're using, which is very common, spreadsheets to track stocks. So now let me go into AppScript, and I'll try to do this fairly quickly so there's time for questions. Are there any questions in that last segment, by the way, Michelle?
We did have a couple, so let me just get back to the top here. There's some questions about the formatting and that goes on when you upload an Excel sheet or a doc. Can you just kind of talk a little bit more about that? I know you touched on it in the beginning. So the specific question is about whether you maintain hyperlinks when you upload into Excel, and then the specific features that are maintained when you upload from a Word doc. And I know you probably can't list them all, but maybe you can just talk generally.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually, I would say, one of the most difficult points of migration is when people are using some of the deep capabilities of those tools, which while we still find is not the majority percentage, but there's always some percentage of users that are doing that. It ends up becoming the weak link. So you'll usually get good fidelity, but there are instances where you won't. So macros were mentioned. Charts in spreadsheets are another thing that will not necessarily come up. I shouldn't say necessarily. They will not be imported. In word processing, I can't think of specific things off the top of my head that will definitely not come up, but the fidelity is not always perfect. And that's something we're working very hard on, actually, to make that something that is somewhat seamless, or as seamless as it can be, is very important to us, because we know that people are, A, trying to migrate, but also B, just trying to share their stuff in the desktop. So I think that it is an area that you kind of discover as you go what doesn't work. We're going to do two things, is make more things work and do a better job documenting when something doesn't work, why didn't it work, so that the users get better messaging.
And then there was a question back to shared folders. Is there an alert feature so that if someone adds a document to your shared folder, you'll be notified?
That's a great question. So the answer is no. We have a very kind of choosy notification feature. In spreadsheets, we have probably what can be called a preview of a style of notification service. So you can set up a notification in a spreadsheet for when the thing is updated and in what way it's updated, and there are certain things there that really help, particularly for forms. So when a form is submitted, you can get a notification that a new form was submitted, your spreadsheet was updated. We don't have that at the docs list level or in the other editors yet. So we do plan on having something like that. We just, again, don't have a date for it yet, but it's a very important feature.
Okay, and just two more before we move on. If one of our resellers wanted to demo the autofill feature that you just showed, is there any kind of an add-on that's needed, or?
No, you just need to know with Magic Fill on a Mac, you want to hold down the Option or Alt key when you do the drag, and on an IBM machine or Windows machine, you want to hold down the Control key. So that's, unfortunately, the keystrokes are different, but no, you don't need anything. It's just going to really work. And you should not see the kind of delays with me, and I think I'm realizing that running WebEx wireless was a mistake.
Okay. And then last question before we move on. Can you discuss a little bit about enhancing the track changes features? So I know we have the revision history. Maybe you can talk about that, and then specifically how we'll look to integrate track changes.
I can't say much more than we're designing it and definitely changing it. It's not something that, again, I don't have a date yet. It's something that is very clearly on the minds of our users, and it has been. We kind of track most popular requests, and that's very high on the list. It's very clear that collaboration begs for better capabilities in revision management and even workflow around track changes. So, yes, we'll do it. It's a matter of when, and I can appreciate the fact that that's kind of vague, and I apologize, but that's it's definitely on our radar.
Okay, thanks. I think we can move on now so we make sure we get through script.
Sure. Okay, so custom development options I think are important to this group, or at least to a subset. There are many APIs. There's the Google Data APIs, which include two specific to Docs, which are the Documents List API, where you can act on documents as a whole, the whole document, or independently is the Spreadsheets API, where you can go deeper into a spreadsheet and access the specific capabilities, the cells and the data within it. There's also the Spreadsheets Gadgets API. The Gadgets API within Spreadsheet lets you do custom visuals within a spreadsheet, or to then syndicate that out to any to an iGoogle page or any gadget container. I realize I'm missing an R at the end there. So the gadget is much more meant for, I would say, when you just want visual, you might still have very deep processing. So I don't know if you've ever seen some of the gadgets, but definitely worth looking at. It's a very broad set of capabilities that you can add your own. So we have system integrators that build gadgets specifically for customers. The visualization API is actually what's used for some of those visualizations and gadgets, but they can be used outside of gadgets as well, in fact, outside of Docs completely. But the data source can be a Docs spreadsheet. There are then some lightweight options. And again, the lightweight options, I think, are actually potentially more interesting at the entry level, which is to generate or create custom templates, to customize the forms that we saw. People are asking us for many, many features within those forms. And you can see we added the grid feature, the template, the themes feature, the ability to make it look like something. But you have the ability to take the HTML that comes out of our form editor and really completely rewrite it except for two sacred things, which is the post URL and the name attribute on every input field. If you keep those intact, you can really do anything with those forms. And there are some very interesting sites that have created surveys that are completely styled for the app, even done in Flash, which are very interactive. But underneath, it's just using Google Docs form to collect the data. So you get the same kind of magic with getting the data from the form to the spreadsheet while you control the HTML. Again, I think it's something that we see internally all the time. We get asked all the time, can you please create for us kind of a better survey using HTML or JavaScript. Custom spreadsheets with data import functions, that's another thing. Learning how to use import data, import XML, import feed, those functions are features that usually require a little bit more technical skill, but not much. And so you can probably help your customer with that. Google Apps Script is a whole another feature for customization and enhancement. And that's something I just want to show you quickly, but the 3 points I wanted to make, it's much more code and go rather than the APIs. The APIs typically require you to be more technical and to know how to get sort of the whole package, build things, and host them somewhere. This is much more hosted JavaScript code on Google servers, and it's immediately accessible from within a spreadsheet. So you basically say, tools, script, and you go. It gives you access not just to the spreadsheet itself, but to other services, mail, calendar, contacts, translation services, and other things. And it gives you the ability to build custom functions for customers as well as complete workflow automation. Again, it's early in the life cycle of this, but it is still, even at its early stage, it's fairly robust and lets you do a lot of things. We're finding people doing some really interesting things. So hopefully I've got these things open somewhere. I meant to, so I will try. Yeah, here we go. So I'll show you first just a very simplistic set of script applications. This one does two things. And it's meant to show how script can be used for something like data cleansing. So if somebody's got a spreadsheet with, and even data that comes in from a form is a great target for this, because who knows how people will enter their data. So let's say you have phone numbers coming in of all kinds of formats. So we've got here formats of phone numbers that are coming in all wacky formats. I've just replicated it over in column E, so I can show you two ways to do this. The first way is through a custom function, which is in column F. So this is just a custom function that I wrote called format phone, and it's just taking the data from the cell to the left and reformatting it. So that's very simplistic, but what it's trying to do is normalize the format. You can see in that function I've said, put an asterisk if there aren't actually enough digits so that you can't normalize it. Don't just give me a fake number, actually just point it out to me and put some kind of notification. I could easily put conditional formatting on this so that those actually show up in red or something, that's obvious. That's one way to do it. The other way is through code that would actually read in selected set of cells and do it for me. So I set up a button here that I can press that'll run a script. You can see it told me it's running it down in the bottom right, that it's finished, and it actually generated for me. It's the same results, basically using the same underlying capability, but in a different form. So it's using either a custom function or a script that runs. And I'll just quickly show you when I go to Tools, Scripts, and Edit Script, that takes me to the script editor. And again, I apologize for the slowness, but this will show you what that code looks like, assuming it comes up. And I would plug in here if I could, and I don't even have a plug, believe it or not. So when that comes up, I will show that to you. I'm going to leave that. And I had one other that I wanted to show you. oh, sorry, actually one other important thing is from that, to get help on that, from the editor, there's a help link that will take you to the page you're seeing now. And this is the help docs here. This is the home page of it, but the docs generally, if you see down the left page, show you all of the objects or classes that are available to someone that's coding these scripts. So in the script editor, you'll see this function to do format phone is just doing regular expressions, and there are just two little scripts in here. One is the script that runs in a loop, and one is the custom function. Very simplistic. There's no wrappers around it. It's just a function, and it's very simple to actually execute. There are two ways to trigger these. One is through a button or any drawing object you can put on a spreadsheet, and the other is through a custom menu that you can generate. So let me just finalize on one other sample. And this will be somewhat connected to our form example. One of the things that we do often is take in data on a form that asks people questions internally. And in a domain, you have the ability to actually ask people to identify themselves. So when you do that, you have the ability to automatically grab their LDAP or their email address. You can also ask them for it and use this feature as well. But what I'm doing here is I'm basically generating an email from this spreadsheet to confirm the fact that I received their response. And I could do other things here. I can enter a very specific response. I could do all kinds of processing, but just to show you generally, this menu confirm would let me send confirm emails. I could do it that way. That was generated using the script, or this button sends them. And what it does is it looks at these two fields, this column, and says if it hasn't been sent already, and I should probably get rid of these just in case, because I'm trying to have this thing assume that two of them were received without being confirmed. And I click to send. It'll run the script. What you're seeing here is an extremely important part of Google Apps Script. It's requiring me to authorize, and me, in this case, being Mary at Acme Systems, saying, I have not written this script. Somebody else wrote it. And it's telling me that this thing is trying to read and write from my spreadsheet and trying to send email. Do I want to do that? Now, there are a whole set of heuristics that say, well, why does it have a green border? This is not actually a very dangerous script, so it's letting me do it. And it's basically just forcing me to authorize before I can run it. So that script did not run. It just forced me to authorize the first time. And now it's actually running the script. So it's going to mark these two items as sent, and it's going to actually send me email. And hopefully I've got Mary's email up. I might have to actually load it. Oh, no, here it is. So I can't tell if that thing actually ran because my... Oh, here it is. So actually, sorry, I'll go back to my inbox so you can see it that way. So, no, they didn't come through yet. So I apologize. The slow connection, unfortunately, you can see it didn't even mark it as sent yet. So that's, you'll have to take my word for it on this one. And I'll, at the risk of this totally failing, this is actually a game that somebody wrote to play Connect 4. And this is going to run a script that just does some visual changes to the spreadsheet. And so this is literally just using script to play a game. And again, this was written extremely simple code. Tedious, I'm sure, but extremely simple code just to show you what kind of thing you can do. So just to review some of the other points about Google Apps Script, it's initiated within Spreadsheets, the web-based editor that we saw. You can create custom functions or workflow. There's no startup effort. This is, if you know JavaScript, basically you go. It is server-side JavaScript. It's not client-side. So it's hosted on Google servers. It gives you access to the services and objects that I list there. It's got the authorization model that I showed you, and there's a very specific help page. So that's it.
Thanks, Jonathan. We have a couple more questions. First, someone is asking about plans to expand Google Scripts, so making it available in documents, for example.
Yes, we definitely will be expanding it.
Okay. And then also, some people haven't seen scripts under the tools menu. Do you know why that might be?
Yeah, that's very important. Sorry, I didn't mention that. Right now, script is only available for EDU and Premier customers. So we're looking to expand that very shortly. We started out there to get as much feedback as we can, and to make sure that the sort of the auth model and the, quote, trusted developer model was worked out. And that's something that we're well on our way to expanding. It's just not done yet.
Okay, great. There's also been a couple questions about Google Docs and how that may be added into Wave or improved with Wave.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like usually the last question I get at every single either discussion, presentation, or even dinner or something. So Wave is obviously very early in its life cycle, right? As early as Docs sometimes feels, Docs is mature compared to Wave. And so while we have some ideas, and we're working with the Wave team to understand, kind of all of our options and look at them and kind of work out the, which are the important ones to try first. We're not actually suggesting to customers anything about the integration. We're basically saying that, yeah, you can see so many points of potential integration, but none of them are going to be production class yet. And I would say until Wave feels like it can be independently production class, we have to wait.
Okay, great. So with that, I think we'll wrap up a few minutes early and let everyone get back to their day. Thank you very much, Jonathan. I know you've had a super busy week coming back from the holidays. We appreciate you taking the time to present for us.
Sure. Thanks, everybody.
And thank you, everyone else, for joining us. Just a quick reminder that we will have a similar webinar in 2 weeks on how to get more out of Google Sites. So it'll be a good follow-up to this webinar, and that's going to be, I believe it's December 10th. We'll be posting all the information on the Solution Providers portal, so you can all register for that one as well. And with that, have a great week, everyone. Thanks again for joining.